So, welcome to our Last Chance to Paint webinar with artist John Dyer, brought to you by Born Free. So, in this session, we're going to be learning all about the Amazon rainforest, and we'll also be learning about one of the fabulous animals that lives there, the shy but very sweet tapir. My name's Charlie, and my colleague Laura is busy working in the background to help answer your questions and hopefully keep things running smoothly as well. But also, I'm going to introduce you to artist and creative partner John Dyer. Say hello, John.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Charlie. Thanks so much. And thank you to everybody, whether you're at a school or home educator, for joining us and putting the time to one side. Because these live webinars we do, I think, well, I find them, they're great fun. And do you know, I learned so much from the Born Free team, or from Charlie in particular. And I've just been going through some of the notes, and there's some amazingly fun facts we're going to find out about tapirs, and some pretty important facts we need to know about the rainforest too. So I literally can't wait to get painting.
A really exciting session that we've got today, haven't we, John?
We have indeed.
Amazing. So as well as being a really talented artist, and you're going to see him in action in a minute, John is also the founder of Last Chance to Paint, which is a project that aims to connect children to nature through art and creativity. So you can find all of his Last Chance to Paint modules on the Born Free website and also the Last Chance to Paint website. And again, we'll put those in the chat box for you so you can find them nice and easily. And there's a module called Spirit of the Rainforest, which focuses on the Amazon. And John was also lucky enough to visit the Bornean rainforest as well to see orangutans, and also Kenya in Africa as well. So go and have a look at those. We'd love for you to be part of the journey. So John, in a minute, I'm going to pass over to you. You're going to be using a program online called Procreate rather than painting for us live, just because it's just a little bit easier for you to do online, isn't it? But yeah, as soon as John gets started painting, you guys at home and at school who are following along, you can start painting as well. So brushes at the ready.
Okay, fantastic, Charlie. So hopefully everybody's got some paints. And if you don't have paints to hand, then whatever you've been given in terms of art materials, that's absolutely fine. Just work along as you can. And if anybody's got different materials and do you wanna ask me to comment on how you might use them in some way, feel free to put it in the chat box. And if that question gets through to me, I will do my best to assist. I might just say, well, paints next time, but I'll do my best. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take over the screen with my iPad. So I'm just going to share the screen, and I'm just going to sort of take you through the process of sketching out a rainforest, and then we're going to build in the tapirs. And as we're doing that, we're going to talk about the rainforest, and Charlie will give you some facts and figures, and we'll just have a general conversation. So, but to get things started off, I think one lovely fact about tapirs that's really struck me this afternoon is that they're sort of semi-nocturnal. So they will come out, they're quite shy, as Charlie said, sweet creatures. They'll come out in an evening or at night time. So with that in mind, I think we should do a nighttime, a nocturne, as you'd call it. So I'm going to choose some blue paint, some quite deep blue paint, and I'm going to put that in the sky. And I work from the background to the foreground, relatively traditionally. And if you've got a flat, wide brush, that would be perfect for this. Obviously, I can make my brush bigger digitally, but don't try a tiny, tiny little brush. That would be really difficult for you to do this. I'm just going to lay down some color on here. In fact, I'm going to go even bigger than this. So let's go for a bigger brush. So I'm going to blend the colors. I'm putting in a slightly paler blue here because we're going to have the rainforest on top of this, the trees coming over the top. You don't have to match this exactly by any means. There's absolutely no need to do that. And then I'm going to bring in some yellows and some creams in here. Look, it did a nice undo there. You won't get an undo like that on your painting. It just seems to be super sensitive today. And I'm putting in some yellows here, which will be really nice. And then I might choose some just sort of purpley colors just for the foreground here. All of this will work in really well. So it doesn't really matter what you've got here. We're just getting rid of that white paper so that we can work on top of it. Now, you're going to have really quite wet paper at this stage. So don't worry about that. We're just going to do wet on wet because we've only got the hour to complete our painting, or should I say to start our painting. So hopefully you'll be able to get quite a long way with this, but if not, let them dry and then come back to it at another session in the classroom, or if you're at home education, the next time you've got a moment. That's what I do with my work. I do revisit it with that. So I'm just gonna fill in some of this in the sky, just put some more little brightness here. And you can just mix the colors on your page like this. I'm going to do one more thing to this now, and then we'll let you sort of catch up. I'm going to just sort of sketch in one of the tributaries of the Amazon River. So the Amazon River is a hugely long river. Charlie, is it the second longest river in the world? Is that right?
It is. So yeah, it's only shorter than the Nile River. So that is the longest, but the Amazon is the widest river. So
There you
in
go.
the rainy season, it can flood entire sections of the forest. So it makes it an incredibly wide river. So yeah, it's it's
Yeah.
it's top of something.
It is, and it is very beautiful when it floods. I've been there going through the Amazon and literally going through sort of halfway up where the trees are, but where it's flooded. So the trees are all literally just coming out of floodwaters. Just looks like a sea with trees coming out. It's quite extraordinary. And the reflections, because it's still as anything, because the rivers, they're not channeled. The tributaries aren't channeled. It's just like wide open water. It's just astonishing. It's like canoeing across a mirror with trees
Wow.
coming out of it, and then all the wildlife and the sounds kind of bouncing off that wonderful surface of the water. I'm doing one more thing, and then I'm going to let you guys catch up. I'm just going to sketch in a tributary here. So it could be, you can do this in any sort of way. It's just we're going to have some water because tapirs do love water.
Mm,
And
they do.
and the Amazon and its tributaries tend to be really quite browny orange in their look. But you can do it. It's a painting. You could do it pink. You could do it blue. You could do it a purple, a mauve. It really doesn't matter. It is a painting. But just if we get to this point, I think we're doing pretty well. And then we've sort of established our background.
So yeah, that is a great start, John. And as you said, they are semi-nocturnal, so you don't have to copy John exactly. They do like to come out at sunset. They like to rest mostly during the day, but yeah, they mostly spend their time foraging around the forest at night. And as John said as well, they absolutely love the water. So you won't find them too far away from water, although they will obviously go into the deeper forest to find food as well.
So
But they
Charlie, sorry to interrupt you.
no, go for it.
You said that so we've got the second longest river in the world. I think that some people dispute that depending on where the tributaries are, but the Nile is definitely clearly is what you'll find is the longest, but it's the widest. But what are the fun facts you have about the Amazon rainforest? Because there's a whole bunch of astonishing statistics, some good, some bad, and while the children are catching up, we go through some of those.
Absolutely. So the Amazon rainforest is absolutely enormous. So that's why it has the widest river of the Amazon. It is the biggest rainforest on the planet, and it is so big. The entire UK, so that is four countries, that is Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England. That country, our country, can fit into the Amazon rainforest 17 times over. So it is absolutely enormous. And it's a really precious landscape. And because of its size, along with other rainforests around the world, it is a really important source of our oxygen. So our rainforests produce a huge amount of oxygen, and we think it's around 20% of the oxygen on Earth comes from rainforests. So if you think about it, that is 1 in every 5 breaths that you take. So a huge amount of oxygen. We can thank the rainforest for creating that. So they are really important, not just for the animals that live there, but also for ourselves. They are absolutely vital for our very survival. But yeah, the Amazon is, like I said, the biggest. It spans 8 different countries, and it's also home to a huge variety of life. So 40,000 species of plant, 1,300 species of bird, 3,000 types of fish, and 2.5 million species of different insect. So that is
2.5
incredible.
million, 2.5
Yeah,
million species. Because even if there were
yeah,
2.5 million insects, that would be scary, right? But 2.5 million species.
yeah,
That
it's
is
incredible.
so it's absolutely vast, right? And
Yeah.
but so is it, it's vast, but we hear that it's getting damaged, right? But what sort of extent is the deforestation in terms of something that we can understand? What I mean,
Um,
big numbers.
so
So make it understandable,
here's
Charlie.
make it understandable. Okay, so essentially, before we started cutting down rainforest, so humans are responsible for cutting down huge swathes of rainforest. Rainforest covered around 15% of the Earth's land area. So all the kind of surface of the land, not including the oceans. But today, they cover less than 6% of our land surface. So
Oh
that's
God.
a really, really big drop. And we are still cutting down the rainforest. So land demand has grown, demand for timber has grown as well. Um, and at the current rate, we're cutting around, on average, the equivalent to 8.5 million football pitches every year. So picture your football pitch, your fully sized football pitch. Now imagine 8.5 million of those football pitches. It's almost impossible to comprehend. It's such a large amount of forest that's being cleared every year, which
That
is
is
really shocking.
that is devastating, isn't it? And Charlie, why? I mean, obviously that's going to impact animals like the tapir and also the indigenous tribal groups that, the children like yourselves that live in the Amazon rainforest. And I've met communities like this we can talk about. But it's why? Why are we chopping down 8.5 million football pitches worth of rainforest? Why? What's going on there?
So lots of different reasons. So like I said, there's population increase. So we're demanding more land. We're also demanding more things like timber, so the wood that comes from the trees, but also things like farms. We're cutting down huge areas of rainforest for farming cattle. And actually 80% of the area deforested in Brazil, which is one of the largest countries where the Amazon rainforest is from cattle farming. So 80% of that deforested area is due to make cattle farms. And whilst a lot of the beef that we eat here in the UK, it doesn't actually come from Brazil, the eating of meat can actually still indirectly be responsible for destructing the rainforest. So a lot of our cows and chickens that are raised here in the UK, they are fed on something called soy. Now, soy, we eat it ourselves, people eat it, but we actually only eat around 15% of the soy that's grown. The rest all goes into animal feed around the world, and huge areas of the rainforest are also cut down, essentially so we can grow lots of animal feed. So
Gosh.
it's a really, really big problem. But as well, there's other resources that we want as well. So put your hand up in the class if you have a tablet at home, if your parents maybe have a mobile phone, anything like that, any kind of electronics, so TVs, games consoles, things like that. I'm sure lots of you have your hands up right now.
I do. I'm using
And
one, Charlie.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, me too. I'm coming to you today using a laptop. So yeah, we've probably all got something in our house that contain something, lots of gold or precious metals, which help those electronics work properly. Now, a huge amount of the metals that we use in our electronics actually comes from underground in areas like the Amazon rainforest. So people are setting up illegal mines, they're clearing the rainforest. To create these mines so that we can have these metals and minerals that we need to make our electronics work. So there's lots of different reasons that we have the rainforest being cleared. And obviously as well, climate change is another huge threat. So as we burn more fossil fuels for ourselves, so maybe driving lots of cars, heating our homes, we are burning fossil fuels to make energy, to make our electricity, and that can cause an impact on our climate. So it can cause droughts in the rainforest. It can also lead to wildfires as well, which in turn makes climate change even worse. So it's kind of an exponential problem that the rainforests are facing. But the important thing to note is that there are things that we can do. So it does sound really quite worrying, quite shocking, but we can do something which is really, really great and really, really important to note. So obviously things like wood, paper, if you buy them from responsible sources, so Forest Stewardship Council, for example, or making sure that actually you recycle your paper when you've finished using it, and also cardboard as well. That means that we don't need to cut down as many trees. Like I said, if lots of you had your hands up, you have electronic items at home, making sure you recycle those electronic devices when they finally break. And that means that those metals that will have been mined from the ground in the rainforest, they can be used again. Okay, so that is one thing that we can definitely all do. And
There's one thing, Charlie, that I've
yeah,
really noted, having sort of traveled around the world and looked into things, is that so what you're saying there is absolutely correct, and we can do all of that. But what I think a driving force behind everything we do to tread as gently as we can on our beautiful planet, and our planet is is doing fine, and nature will fight back really fast as long as there's still nature there to fight back. As long as there's you've
Absolutely.
still got some biodiversity and hopefully the full range of biodiversity as far as we can, it will come back naturally. So we need to be careful. But it's a very interesting sort of ecosystem where the the actual soils of the Amazon rainforest are very poor. There is a dark layer of earth that we think was man-made over the sort of like tens of thousands of years going back into prehistory. But actually, if you grow a crop, if you fell some trees and you grow some soybeans as a crop and or maize or whatever, you find it will probably fail on the second or third year. There's very, very small amount of nutrients because something that was discovered in Borneo back in the 70s when my good friend and supporter of Last Chance to Paint, Robin Hanbury-Tennyson, who was the 20th century world's greatest explorer, amazing man. They didn't know how rainforests work back then, but they discovered with the biologists on the Borneo expedition that the nutrients of the rainforest are actually held within the trees themselves. It's not held within the soil. It's a very interesting bit of science. So, but there are a certain amount of nutrients that come over to the rainforest to refresh it, and those come over on global weather systems. So the Sahara Desert is one of those areas that feeds the rainforest today. So the Sahara Desert used to be a sea, and in the sea used to be lots of creatures and fish. And when it dried up, it became a desert. Every year, the sand and dust is picked up from the Sahara, goes right across the Atlantic, and is deposited across South America, and that contains the nutrients from those animals. So the reason I'm telling you this very long story is because basically what you do in your backyard, in your garden, in your school directly impacts the children of your age in other parts of the world over a long time scale. So where you have a fence in your school or in your garden, maybe some of you have got plastic grass put down because it's just nice and convenient. Wherever we can remove man-made stuff like that from gardens or areas and plant with more biodiversity and hopefully native plants from your country, that will really help because it helps to settle weather systems and biodiversity on a global level. And I appreciate this is a tiny and immeasurable amount of good you're doing, but we know en masse this is how the planet works. We're all part of the same thing. And if you've ever blown a bubble with a pot of bubbles from the corner shop, and you've seen a bubble and it makes a beautiful sphere like a planet, and you see the colors, the sort of oily colors going around it, rainbow colors, you can see they quickly go across the surface of the bubble. And that is exactly what's happening with our planet and our climate. So what you do in your garden, in your school, in terms of outside and sort of bird boxes and planting and hedging and grass and wildflowers and trees, that directly alters those colors around the bubble and it spreads the goodness. So it's something really
Amazing.
positive you can do.
That's a really good way of putting it, John. I love that kind of analogy. Um, so we have been asked to slow down just a little bit. So,
I knew
John.
it. I knew it would happen because I've been sneakily sketchy.
So we're going to take a little pause if that's okay, John.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
could you actually tell us a little bit about your experience in the Amazon rainforest?
Yes, so I was very lucky. I know a good friend of mine now called Nishiwaka of Yawanawa, which means he's from the Yawanawa tribe in Brazil. I met him at the Eden Project, where I'm the artist in residence. And shock horror, 25 years I've been doing that now, next year. So, and anyway, I was invited back to Brazil to spend 10 days with his tribe or a few days with his tribe painting. And yeah, it is an extraordinary place. So, I mean, it's quite interesting today we're doing tapirs because the reason I originally wanted to go to the Amazon, and I did go before that trip in 1989 as a student, was because of tapirs. Because I read a book as a child, and it's called Amazon Adventure. Can't remember the author. And it was about escaping the rainforest. And I'm sure a lot of it was absolutely rubbish. But the things about the wildlife seemed to be pretty much accurate. And it would go into some detail about the animals they encountered. And one of those animals was the tapir. And I was fascinated by the tapir because, of course, it's got this proboscis nose, and
Mhm.
it's a bit like a little elephant, but it's not related to the elephant. Is it, Charlie?
No,
It's something
no.
else, isn't it? Yeah.
So they're more closely related to horses and rhinos, would you
There you go.
believe?
Horses and rhinos. So, anyway, it always struck me that it would be lovely to go to the Amazon and see some tapirs, as you do. Well, you're very, very unlikely to see any major mammals or any animals at all in the rainforest because they keep themselves to themselves. And 90% of the wildlife and biodiversity is in the canopy of the rainforest, which means it's at the top of the trees. And it's up there because very little light will penetrate down through the canopy to the forest floor. So when you go to the rainforest, it's like an incredibly hot and humid version of your local woodland in many respects. There's leaves dying back on the floor. There's the sort of bare trunks of trees, although some of those trees will be very spiny. Um, but you do get lianas and vines coming down through the canopy, which we're going to be putting into our painting in a moment. I know I'm not allowed to draw, but I do on here as I'm doing it. So you might get a liana coming down around a tree like this. You see, that wasn't too much painting, was it? And what you do, what I struck me from both of the times I've been in the Amazon rainforest was the sounds. You get the beautiful calls of specific birds, toucans, macaws. There's an Amazon, I think it's a peahen, a little, very insignificant little bird that you never see, but you hear it. It's like a background track. And then at night, of course, you've got all the insects, the 2.5 million trillion billion insects. They're all in wherever you're staying, a tent or your hammock or hut. Um, uh, so there's a lot of life you hear. There's a lot of life you sense. It's very humid. And of course, you get these extraordinary vistas down the tributaries. And you also see, I was lucky enough to see lots of fish jumping out of the water. They were being chased by piranha fish and also dolphins that you
Oh,
get.
wow.
So I've seen dolphins, which are the pink dolphins in the Amazon, and they're very spiritual to the communities along the river. And you'll
That's
just see them
amazing.
just rising with their heads and quite elongated sort of faces, the Amazon dolphins.
Yeah, they look very different to ones that you'd find in the ocean because the water is so murky. They have to rely a lot more on their echolocation than their vision, don't they? So that's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's really murky, hence putting in a sort of tea-coloured tributary. This could be the Rio Gregorio, where the Yawanawa tribe are. And to get to the tribe, to break off from the sort of Amazon River, you're talking about an 8 hour motorized, quite fast motorized canoe ride. It's a very, very long way. And it goes through every form of geographical river thing you will ever study. You've got the oxbows, you've got all the sort of curves, you've got everything going on, and every tree that can fall or has fallen is still in the river, of course. So it's quite an obstacle course. You have to be really quite careful. You have to keep your arms into the boat, and you have to do exactly as whoever the boatman is, or or lady doing it. So it would be somebody from the tribe. Because it can be quite dangerous. Because if you hit a chunk of wood at speed, that's going to take a chunk of you out of it as well. That very rarely happens because everybody abides by the rules. But this is to travel from where I am in Falmouth and Cornwall to the Yawanawa would take me about 5 or 6 days before I arrived there.
Oh, wow. It's a really long way. And
It is quite.
obviously very remote as well.
It is very, very remote. So, and a lot of those tribal communities are super remote, but they're also very connected. So they are very much like Charlie and myself and all of you watching. They're people with dreams, with needs. They need to eat, they need shelter, they need medication. They have their traditional medications, they have their traditional foods. They're also connected to the wider world. Some of them, it's always very striking when you meet a child from a quite a rural community. And there was a child, this is skipping now actually to Kenya, but there was a child when I was in Kenya working with the Born Free Foundation, and his dream was to become a helicopter pilot. And he was from Maasai descent, I believe, and that's fantastic, isn't it? So when you hear about the Amazon or the savannah or any ecosystem, please remember that is the home for children like yourselves and their parents and their grandparents and their families and everything. It's not just a science project. This is a home, and they have a right to be there, as we have a right to be in our uh, environment. but they have to treat it with care and respect, and they definitely do, and they've got deep knowledge, but they've also got quite a traumatized history, which we won't go into now, but to do with it's just to do with colonization and diseases, and then having to rebuild their society. So, and that's similar to lots of societies around the world, and lots of you will probably connect to that indication of that story as I say that. But that goes on not just in the wider sense, but in small indigenous tribes of tribal group of maybe 200 people, 500 people. They've really had a tough time and continue to do so. And as Charlie was talking about the rare earth and the minerals from my iPad, and so I hope that Apple haven't done that. It's very hard to tell, but that disrupts tribal groups, and it's devastating. So it's not just tapirs, it's people. So, but yeah, do you think I can paint a bit more so we can?
We can probably
Yeah,
paint a little bit more, but as John said, it's really important that we look after our own environments as well, thinking about the environments around the world, but also looking after our own patch and taking care of the environment that's around us as well. And like we said earlier, there are ways that you can help protect the rainforest as well by doing those little actions like recycling your electronics so we don't need to dig up any more of the ground. Also, maybe even if you really like eating meat, that's fine, but maybe just having a little bit less, try a meat-free Monday, for example. And if everyone did that, if everyone did one small thing, it would make a really huge difference, not just for the rainforest, but for habitats around the world. So we can all make a really big difference, even if our actions at the time seems really small. Now
yeah,
today, because we are in the Amazon rainforest, we're focusing on one of the 4 species of tapir. So we're looking at the lowland tapir, which is sometimes called the Brazilian tapir. And they are found across a lot of the continent of South America. But there are other tapirs as well, believe it or not. And there is the Baird's tapir, which can be found in kind of in Mexico, Central America, down to South America. The mountain tapir also lives in South America. And it is a kind of very dark coloured tapir, and it likes to live in the colder environments in the Andes, so in the mountains, as you might have imagined. And also, we also have a tapir that lives further away, and they live in Malaysia, so in Southeast Asia. And the Malayan tapir, you might have seen it, it's very cute. It is black and white, so almost got kind of like a white stripe in the middle. A little bit like a saddleback pig if you've ever seen one of those, so very sweet. I can see, John, you've got an outline of a proboscis already. It's a tricky word to say, proboscis.
it is. I know I was not going to say it again because I tried earlier. So, and I'm not even gonna try the word that describes what that proboscis can do. That's your job, Charlie. It's it's yeah, you can have a go at that, but it is a little bit. It basically a tapir can use their proboscis to do a lot of things with, and one of the really fun things is they love to be in the water, and they'll eat. They're herbivores, so they will eat water plants and reeds and any sort of vegetation, but they can also pop that because it's kind of bendy, a bit like an elephant's trunk, but it's clearly not as long as an elephant's trunk, as you can see from this is like a side on of the head. It will make more sense in a moment to you, but they can pop it up to snorkel with, so they can breathe air
Mm.
because they're a mammal, so they need to breathe air so they don't drown, and they can sort of like just sort of plod along the bottom of the river, probably through some weeds and some feeding grounds, while having a look down from one side of their eye to see where's a good place to graze while breathing the whole time, and then they'll put their head down and eat, and then they have to hold their breath, of course. So but yeah, so I just want to make sure we get a few tapirs in, so I'm just going to do this one to a certain point so you can see it, and then we'll do a couple of others given the time, and I'm always aware that time does run out on us. So this is
Amazing. So that word that you talked about, John, so the proboscis, so their little trunk that they've got, it's prehensile. So
that's
that
it.
is a tricky word, but it is a word that we use to describe something that can wrap around things. So monkeys have prehensile tails. They will use their tails to wrap around branches to help keep their balance, make sure they don't fall off. But the tapir will use their proboscis, their little trunk, to grasp food, as John said. So they'll go down to the bottom of the water, they will grab food with it. And also on land as well, they'll eat various plants on land as well, but also because they're related to horses. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen this happen, if you have seen horses or zebras or any other animal watching documentaries and things. They tend to lift up their top lip, and this is a behavior that essentially helps them to smell things a little bit better. So as well as they're kind of grabbing things, they'll use that trunk like a snorkel. They will lift up their top lip so they can smell things a lot better as well. So it is a really multifunctional tool, really. And like I said, it's a really tricky word to say. Try and say proboscis 3 times in a row. I'm sure you'll get in a muddle.
I'm not going to try because we're broadcasting this. So yeah, they've got some amazing features. So you're probably thinking, what on earth's going on here? But what I'm going to just sketch in now is one of their is a key feature of these tapirs, and they've got a ridge of fat which sort of goes, kind of looks almost from like the middle of the head, just above the eye, but it kind of goes along their back, a bit like a Mohican haircut, which I'm sketching in here. And there's a theory as to why they've got this fatty ridge with this hair on the back, which Charlie will explain way better than I can. It is quite an extraordinary. Is it a theory, Charlie? You explain it. Is it a theory or is this a known thing?
So I think there's still lots we don't 100% know about animals. So I think it is a theory that scientists have come up with as a way to explain why they've got that. And essentially, they are herbivores. They are eaten by other animals. So they're eaten by things like crocodilians, so caimans, the Orinoco crocodile like to prey on them as well. Big cats, so the jaguar and the puma, that are also found in the Amazon rainforest. And essentially, I think that this bristly mane can actually help them to escape attacks from big cats. Um, so they'll grab it by the back of the neck, but actually it turns out they've just grabbed a big mouthful of fur. So that's a reason why we think they've got this big mane essentially. But they've also got really, really thick and fatty skin as well. And the name tapir actually means thick, and that's because their hide is so thick. So that again helps protect them from attacks from those predatory animals.
That's amazing, isn't it? That is an extraordinary thing. And you mentioned, that they need to get away from the large mammals like a jaguar, which is a very fearsome apex predator, so top of the food chain. And I know when I was over with the Yawanara that Merlin Hambry Tennyson, who was part of our expedition group, he went out deep into the rainforest with Nishiwaka looking for food, and they came across fresh jaguar footprints. So they were
Oh,
never very
wow.
far from these big cats. But is a jaguar bigger than a tapir, a full-grown tapir?
Yeah, a jaguar is a little bit bigger, but well, in terms of kind of their height, but uh, the tapir is the largest mammal that lives in South America. So it can weigh 300 kilos. So they are really heavy. So jaguars, we know they're very strong, very powerful animals, and they need to be able to pull down a tapir because they are really strong, really powerful animals. And because they love the river as well, they have a really good way of escaping. They can dive into the water, and they can hold their breath for a number of minutes as well if they need to escape. So sometimes
Yeah.
if a jaguar has got hold of one, they can dive underwater until it lets go, essentially. So a really
Just
good
stick their
escape method.
snorkel up. They
Yeah.
can outdo a jaguar. Jaguars can't snorkel.
But yeah, they are very large animals. But as John said, really, really difficult to find in the rainforest because they are so shy and they will spend their days resting in a sheltered area so that they are not likely to be found by people or their predators. So yeah.
But they are. Um, are they critically endangered or just endangered, or are they vulnerable? Where are we with tapirs? I mean, everything's getting, as you said, so many football pitches worth of rainforest come down. Everything is being threatened. But with the tapirs, are they? Where are they? Which
Uh,
way are
so
they?
sadly, all species of tapir are under threat. So the lowland tapir that you're painting today, they are vulnerable to extinction. And the mountain birds and Malayan tapir, they are all endangered. So they are all under threat and they face lots of threats, not only that the rainforest is being cut down at a really, really fast rate, but also um, things like people hunt tapirs. So they are hunted for their meat, for their hides, but also for sport, which is really sad. So Born Free is working to help end the hunting for sport and trophy hunting, and that's what we're working really hard on at the moment. And also we're helping to bring around laws as well to stop the trade of endangered species like the tapir as well.
Yeah, so
Um,
isn't it? It's a very interesting thing, isn't it? That people will go to hunt for no particular reason, and there's a very big difference between a local tribe of like 400 or 500 people who have lived in the rainforest who might, I think they'd be very unlikely to catch a tapir, to be honest, because it's just they're much more likely to catch some wild, wild sort of Amazon turkey sort of things or fish. But if they did, that would be arguably sustainable because it's not like a tourist industry going out and getting a tapir for a trophy. So there is a very big difference. But also, as the Amazon is taken down and people start to farm it, there's a bit of people and animal sort of conflict, isn't there, Charlie, with them as well? Because tapirs are voracious herbivores, and
mm,
the farmers don't much like that, do they?
Absolutely. So yeah, they can come into conflict with people because they will compete with cattle for food and space. But also, what's really sad is as we encroach more and more into the rainforest, we're building more and more roads, and that means that large numbers are also being hit by cars and being killed by traffic, and it's a really big problem facing tapirs. And tapirs, they are really lovely animals. They're very caring of their young, and actually, even though they kind of get weaned after about kind of 4 or 5 months, the baby tapir, they will stay with their mother for 18 months or more. So they stay together for a really, really long time. And that means that they actually don't have a huge number of babies across their lifetime. So they've got a really, really slow uh, reproduction rate, which means actually that it's quite difficult for their numbers to increase over kind of short periods of time. It takes a long time for those populations to build back up again.
Yeah, so and they it's a longer gestation for for the calf with the tapir mum, isn't it, than us humans?
Absolutely.
We're sort
Yes,
of 9 months, and they're much longer than that, I think. So it's hard for them it's hard for the numbers to come back very quickly with them.
absolutely.
So there was another fun fact that I've reading about tapirs, which was um, they can go really fast, right?
They can. So even though they're so heavy, so even though they can weigh up to 300 kilos, like I said, they can run up to 30 miles an hour. So really, really fast. So even
Yeah,
though it can only be in short bursts, they can't do it for a long time. That is quick. So they can run to the river, they can get away from those predators. But they're really strong swimmers as well. So they'll use kind of a doggy paddle type stroke. They've got webbed feet, which means that they can swim faster, but also it means that they're not going to sink into the mud when they're walking across those kind of riverbanks and things. So yeah.
yeah. And the babies the babies are born with pajamas on, is that right? They look
They look adorable. They do look like they're wearing pajamas. So yeah, every single species of tapir, so whether it's the lowland tapir that you're painting today or the Malayan tapir, which looks very different, their babies all have these amazing stripes. And the stripes will kind of grow out after about a year or so. Um, but they essentially help camouflage them. It's incredible camouflage because, as we said, they are herbivores, they are prey for a huge number of animals living in the rainforest. So the better camouflage you are, the less likely you are to get spotted and to get seen. And so I think John is putting in a little baby there. So
yeah.
they have these beautiful brown and white stripes. And like I said, it does look a little bit like they're wearing pajamas, but it's very, very cute. And as we said, as they grow older, those will fade out. Um, and the lowland tapirs, they are kind of a brown colour with that dark mane across their back. And the mountain tapirs, they are almost jet black. They are absolutely beautiful. Um, with the Baird's tapir looking pretty similar to the lowland tapir. So yeah, look up those different species afterwards. They look really different, but you can tell that they are all part of the same family, which is amazing. Oh, it's a lovely stripy baby. Very cute.
Yeah, but I thought we should put a calf in. I need to use the right term here. It's a calf
It
Charlie.
is, yeah.
No.
It is a carp, yeah.
But
Better at
yeah,
the scientific words than me today, John.
I know, I've done my homework. So no, it's no, it is it's extraordinary. But you get this with with wild pigs and things and other animals. It is a disguise thing. But it's interesting hearing you talk about how they are preyed on by other animals, and that it just brings to mind people might think, oh no, but actually everything's part of this web of life, including us. Luckily, we're not preyed on by other animals, but we do hold an important role in the ecosystem. So think of it really simply, really. If you've got an apex predator, let's say the jaguar. Let's say you've got one tapir in the rainforest and you've got 10,000 jaguars. Well, immediately you can see there's a problem for the tapir and there's arguably a really big problem for the jaguars because that's not going to go around. So you've got to have balance within every part of the ecosystem, and to support a tapir or a jaguar or a you or a Charlie or a John, you need everything. You need everything in that web of life. You need all the bacteria. You need all the plants, or the algae, or the mycelium, the mushrooms, as it were, the fungus. You need all the insects, the pollinators. You need all the workers in the soil that turn it over. In fact, tapirs turn over soil as well and spread seeds. And Charlie will tell you a really fun fact about seed spreading in a minute, I'm sure. And if not,
Yeah.
I'll remind her. And it's you need all of that, and you need the tapirs and the jaguars and the birds and somehow and the trees. It all works together, and as long as it's in balance, we get planet Earth. And when it's out of balance, or we force it out of balance, by taking away, 8.5 million football pitches worth of rainforest a year, that's when we end up in a last chance to see something situation, a last chance to paint, because they're going extinct. So it's all to do with being optimistic and innovative and making small changes. And there are 2 billion children on planet Earth. And I know all 2 billion aren't in a position to make changes, and all 2 billion don't need to make changes. But those of us, I counted myself as a child here, I'm clearly not. If we all make a difference, it will make a really positive impact. And your futures are really bright and really positive. And with the change to renewable energy and with the tech that's coming through to help us to deal with climate change and to improve things, I feel really positive, especially if you know what's going on. Right, Charlie, interesting thing about seeds and tapirs and what they like to do in the river.
So this is a good fact, you are right. So tapirs, as I said, they're herbivores, so they'll eat loads of different things. So eat seeds, fruits, leaves, bark, and those aquatic plants as well when they dive under. Um, and because of that, they are incredible at spreading seeds. So they think a recent study of the lowland tapir in Peru has found that there could be 122 different species of seed in tapir poo. So they are spreading all different kinds of seeds, all different kinds of plants around the rainforest, including those really slow growing trees that are really important for helping to store carbon in their trunks and then help to combat climate change. So that makes the tapir one of the best kind of species for helping combat climate change. They are planting new trees around the rainforest at an astonishing rate. So it's absolutely fantastic. And also sometimes, occasionally as well, they've found that tapirs, some species actually like to spend their time and go to the toilet only in the river as well. So they're helping to spread nutrients throughout the forest as it goes in the river, which is quite interesting. So yeah, be careful when you're living downriver from a tapir, just in case they have gone to the toilet in that river there.
Yeah, there'd be 122 nearly trees going past you, but yeah, and I think there's again another theory about why they might use the river for that, and I think one of the things is to avoid prey, so the prey can't necessarily smell where the tapirs have been.
Absolutely.
It could be that, but and again by having all these little ways, it's a bit like and you need to watch our webinars about giraffes and acacia trees. There's all sorts of little things where nature is very good at allowing so much, or they put evasive tactics in so the prey can only take so much because the prey needs the tapirs to thrive. because
Yeah,
basically,
it's all in balance. Like you said, every living thing has its own place, their own little niche in the environment. So we need all of the species to survive, not just a few that we like to talk about a lot and that are kind of seen as those poster pin-up species. So we need to be looking after every species, whether it's plant, animal, or fungi.
absolutely. So, Charlie, have there been any questions that have come in that we need to answer for the schools, or is everybody happy?
I think we're okay at the minute, but if you do have
Good.
any questions, please do pop them in the Q&A box. So whether that's about John and his travels or his artwork, whether that's about tapirs or the Amazon rainforest more in general, or rainforest in general, please
Yeah.
do pop those in the chat box and we'd be
So what I'm
happy
doing
to
now
answer them.
on these tapirs is I'm just putting some more details around the eye. But if you can get a nice eye on a tape, and you might need to go back and do this. Obviously, my digital paint is a little bit wet the way it works, but it's actually not wet. Clearly, it's not wet. So I do have an advantage, a bit of a speed advantage with this. But just to talk a little bit more about Last Chance to Paint, I was inspired to do this because so many schools study my work, and I'm based in Falmouth in Cornwall, and lots of the work's based around the coast and seascapes and boats. And my work's quite naive or quite deliberately tries to sort of find the essence of a subject. And I love the way that young children naturally work. I just think that's adorable. So I build that into my work. But in 2018, the very last male northern white rhino passed away, leaving two female northern white rhino. That's a subspecies, but nevertheless, a species. And I just suddenly thought, oh, actually, there's so many animals and species that I've lost since I was at school. And I looked at my youngest daughter at the time and thought, well, if we roll on the same amount of time, she'll be 50. And I can't imagine how much we would have lost. It will be devastating. So I thought, well, I'll try and use the interest that schools have in and around my art to do Last Chance to Paint. And it's all free. If you haven't been to lastchancetopaint.com, you might have just received an email and gone to the Zoom booking. But do go, and there's 3 expeditions you can follow with your class. So you can literally come to the Amazon with me and meet Nishiwaka Yawanawa, hear tribal music, see our photographs. And the way that you should, or the way I imagine teachers doing this is you play a video each day to the class. And our videos are between sort of 5 and 15 minutes, depending on the project. And then read the blog. So we write a daily blog from when we're on an expedition, very sort of raw energy of that. Read that, play some tribal music, show photographs. And after a period of days of immersing, then see what each child connects to. Because if you can build a bond with each child, then I think we're getting somewhere. And then let them take those paintings home, how they've reacted to the rainforest. So to the Amazon, or the other project, which is Borneo, with the Penan tribe and with orangutans, or Kenya, where we meet the Maasai tribe and all the wonderful animals in Kenya. Um, uh, do that. If you can do those projects, I think that it will build really important bonds between children. And in Kenya, you can come on the school run with a lovely local child called Vincent, and you'll see what his school run is like. Meet his mum. We discuss what his school food is like. We'll paint with his class. There's a lot of joyous stuff on Last Chance to Paint, and Born Free provide free teacher notes, so you can download those, and lesson plans, and it's all wrapped up and ready to go. And I hope that next year we'll also be back on the road with a 4th expedition once we get that planned. So yeah, take a look. And then the webinars, we put those up a few weeks later. So this one, hopefully, if it technically works, will be available to review a few weeks later once it's been through the sort of editing process. And our previous webinars are all on Last Chance to Paint as well. So it's a mixture of those big expeditions and a webinar. So yeah, enjoy, and hopefully it will make a difference. We'll see. We're getting, Born Free tells me we get around about 60,000 children in any one year, estimated, connecting to our resources and following the project. So that's a big number now,
Yeah,
which
so
is really good.
really exciting. And it's great to be a part of these expeditions with you, which is fantastic. We love learning and teaching all about these amazing animals. Now, we have had some questions through for you, John.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've just spoken about your expeditions. So one of the things that we've had asked is, what was your favourite place to visit?
Do you know, that's so hard. I love them all, but do you know Kenya was absolutely extraordinary because the amount, if you want to see wildlife, not just hear birds and insects, if you want to actually see wildlife, then I think Africa is probably second to none because it's not all hidden. It's not like a tapir hiding behind a bush, which might be 4 meters from you, but you'd never see it. It's all out there on the savannah. It's laid out like a toy set of the best animal forms you can imagine: elephants and giraffes and rhinos and hippopotamuses. And I just absolutely loved it. I loved the people. I loved the place. The climate was super. Seeing all of that wildlife is very special. And being able to see lions just kind of gently wandering out of their sort of palm fringed forest on the edge of the savannah and literally acting like your domestic cat. If I didn't hear them purring, but I imagine, they were rolling over, they were enjoying the sun, they were doing everything a cat would, but proper lion sized. It was very special. So if you're into wildlife, I could really recommend Africa. If you're in, and yeah, the culture there, the Maasai was extraordinary as well. But they all have a special place in my heart, all of them, for all different reasons.
Amazing. No, I love it. Um, so definitely go and have a look at that Last Chance to Paint Precious Africa if you haven't had a chance, because yeah, there's some amazing wildlife and also tribes people that you can hear from as well and hear their experiences. Um, okay, so we've had some questions about tapirs as well. So what age does a tapir have babies? And I know, thank you very much to Laura for looking that up for us in the background. So they can start having babies from around 2 years of age. So that's why they spend such a long time with their mum. They haven't matured yet. They'll stay with mum for about 18 months. But when they, as John said earlier, when they're having their babies, their pregnancy lasts for 13 months, so more than a year, which is incredible. So a really long time. And that's again why their birth rate is quite slow, because it takes a long time for them to be pregnant, and then they need to look after their baby, teach them the right plants to eat, and look after them as they grow up as well. So
Yeah, something worth bearing in mind though is that unlike in our, luckily, for us, most babies do thrive, but in the animal kingdom, lots of babies don't survive or don't thrive for lots of different reasons, and then you've got to wait that whole time again to try again. So it's not a given. It's not as much of a given as it is now in a human society. If you go back a few hundred years, it wasn't quite so a given for us, but. Yeah, it's a long time, isn't it?
it is a long time.
Do they have? There's something I don't know. I don't know whether Laura, you might know this, Charlie. I certainly don't know this. Do they have just one calf, or do they have more than one? I don't know the answer to that, so I'm just putting it out as a question.
I believe that twins are very rare, so they'll usually just have one calf at a time.
Okay.
Occasionally they might have two, but they then stay with their mum, like we said, for around 18 months, maybe a little bit longer. But a lot of the time they are solitary. They don't really like socializing all that much. They'll spend a lot of time on their own. They might meet each other occasionally in the forest, but a picture like this that you might see multiple tapirs living together, that doesn't really tend to happen. They are very happy being on their own. They love being solitary, apart from obviously those mum and baby pairs that spend a lot of time together. So yeah, brilliant. John, some more questions for you. A lot about favourite and not favourite animals.
Oh,
So
okay.
which is your favourite animal in the Amazon, but also which animal do you really not like and why?
Oh, okay, right. So, favorite animal in the Amazon. I think I would probably go for the butterflies. I know they're insects.
Amazing.
I know they're insects, but there's a particular butterfly, the Morpheus butterfly, which is, I would say, pretty much like my hands, like that. It's that big,
Wow.
maybe
Huge.
maybe fractionally smaller than that, but very similar, and it's iridescent, metallic, bright blue. I just I just love the butterflies. And there were lots in with the Yawanawa, there were lots of butterflies on the side of the river. I think probably getting salts, probably. Lots of yellow and white ones in clouds. And I really like the butterflies. And then if I had to choose a second favorite animal, I would just group it as the birds because what you hear in the canopy is amazing. My least favorite animal, and it's not because it's a bad animal, It's just because I get really scared. Are snakes or a snake. I don't much like coming across snakes, and the tribe, interestingly, don't much like coming across snakes either. They have two particular snakes. They have the snake of the sky and the snake of the ground, and one is called a Anushka, and I need to look the other one up. That's their tribal name for it. So the snake of the sky is basically the boa constrictor, and they're very wary of the boa constrictor because it
Yeah,
can take a tribal member just like that. But it also forms a very strong spiritual element to their culture. And then the snake of the ground is the anaconda. And I've seen an anaconda before, and they are enormous. There's one living right near the Yawanawa tribe in Mutum, their tribal village. I didn't see that one, but I've seen another one, and they're vast. Again, that is a constrictor. So yeah, so it's not so much the constrictors that worry me, but it's if you get bitten and you're 10 hours up a tributary of the Amazon, your chances of survival are pretty slim. So that's why I personally don't like snakes, but snakes are a key part of the ecosystem and should be revered and looked after and everything. So yeah, just because
absolutely.
I say I
No.
don't like it doesn't mean they're bad.
See, it's a good lesson. So even if you do find an animal, oh, a bit not sure about that, bit scared of it, they do have a really important role to play. So even those snakes, even those spiders, if you don't really very much like them. And
Oh,
also, John,
spiders, yes.
I love that you picked a butterfly as well, though, because we sometimes overlook insects and things for more cuddly species. So actually, I think
We
that's
do.
amazing.
I'm going to put one
Giving
in
a
here
shout out to the insects. So yeah, fantastic.
for the bus.
Brilliant. Oh, a good question here. Have you ever used a rainforest plant for medicine? Now, that is a great question. The rainforest is really important for us, not only because of the oxygen, not only because it provides us with kind of wood, some amazing species of plant that we have trained for food, like bananas, mangoes, things like that. Um, but also, there is an amazing number of plants that provide us with medicine. And these can be medicines for all sorts of different things. So we've created medicines for cancer, so we can treat cancer with plants that have originated from the rainforest. So absolutely, I'm sure there are lots of different things in your probably medicine cabinet at home that might have links to the rainforest, which is absolutely amazing. So yeah,
Yeah,
great question.
plants are basically our pharmacy, our chemist shop, as it were. And what we're losing with 8.5 million football pitches of rainforest coming down, we will never know. But we are losing vast amounts of important information and plant species all every day, and we need them. I mean, in all countries and in all environments, plants are important. So, for example, an analgesic, something for headaches, you must take it. This is only with your doctors or parents, but a headache tablet called aspirin is made from not from a rainforest plant, from one that grows in Somerset, from the willow tree.
Oh,
So
wow.
in the Amazon, there are so many medications that have come from there, and the
And
knowledge.
lots yet to be discovered as well.
Yeah, and the knowledge that the shaman, so the spiritual leaders, the leaders of the tribe, really, not the chief, but the one who looks after their spirituality and their health, the shaman or shaman, he or she will understand the plants and what they can do just so well. It's incredible. So it is basically everything they need, a tribal group, they can get from the forest. And it's also planted like that as well. It's not just they don't just happen across the perfect plant. They make sure they spread the seeds and they put them in key areas. And also for when they go out hunting, they'll make sure that they've planted particular palm trees so they can pull off leaves for shelter for the night and things. So it is a gardened, wild rainforest. And that goes back
Amazing.
over the tens of thousands of years.
That is brilliant. Fantastic. I love that, John. Okay. So, as well as that, we obviously have medicines for ourselves, but something that you might not know because it's only really recently been recorded. We're moving to the rainforests of Africa now, where Born Free does work to protect species of great ape, so chimpanzees and gorillas. Um, but we actually have video footage of great apes using plants. So they will chew up different medicinal plants, they'll put them on their wounds, and that helps to heal their wounds. So actually, other animals are even using rainforest plants for medicine as well, which is really, really exciting.
That's incredible. And again, I mean, go back to when I was at school, it was thought that we were the only tool makers. Human beings were the only important creature because we made tools like Apple pencils or, whatever, or pickaxe. But no, it's not true. Corvids make tools or use tools. Corvids are the crow family. So magpies, ravens, jackdaws. They're very clever. They've been using rocks and things and working out problems. And of course, it's now well recorded that bonobos, another form of ape, and chimpanzees, they readily make tools. It's a simple thing, take a stick to go into a hole to get a termite or out, or applying, this is a level up, isn't it? Applying plants for a medicine to heal a wound. And
Yeah.
it's just we've been, as a species, I think we've been very well, clearly we've been ignorant, but we've also been a bit sort of, I don't know what the right word would be really. We've just been above ourselves. We've just been like pretending we're separate to the animal kingdom. We're not. We're just part of it, and animals do it in their different level. And we're all conscious and we're all aware. And tapirs will love their young in the same way we love our young.
Yeah.
Um,
And we are learning all the time, which is amazing. So even just recently, a couple of years ago, our government, so here in the UK, we passed a law which recognises many different types of animals. So every vertebrate animal, animals that have a backbone, and even some animals without a backbone. So lobsters, crabs, octopuses, cuttlefish, squid, for example. Our law now recognizes that those animals are sentient, and that means that those animals have the ability to feel joy, to feel happiness, but also to feel distress and sadness as well, and to feel pain. So actually, we are still learning these things. We're still finding out new things about animals and understanding more about them. And actually, they are a lot more similar to us than maybe we once thought.
Yeah, and that's the same for the whole. I think that the similarities between ourselves and animals of all lots of different species, there are far more similarities really than there are differences, and it's absolutely 100% true when you look at people, at children like yourself and their parents around the world, whether the Maasai or the Penan tribe in Borneo or the Yawanara tribe in the Amazon or all the other tens of thousands of rural populations. There's so much more in common we have than the differences we might have.
We have got a few more questions, so I'm going to pose these to you, John.
Okay.
There's a really interesting question here. It's probably going back to which is your favourite animal, but you might have a different answer. If you could have dinner with any wild animal, which would you choose? I'm sure you probably were surrounded by animals when you were in
Oh,
the Amazon.
what an incredible question. I think that's one of the best questions we've had on these webinars. Okay, if I could have dinner with any animal rather than having any animal for dinner, which I wouldn't, I'm vegetarian. I think if I could invite one animal to dinner, I would invite an orangutan
Oh, wow.
because an orangutan, when I've spent a few days in the rainforest and the very southern tip of Borneo, I mean, genetically, they're 97% the same as you and I. So they're genetically almost the same. Their behavior is almost identical. Their manners is as bad as ours. And we had an orangutan that went into our camp kitchen when we weren't looking and took an entire tray of cakes away. Um, and and the week before I was there, Sheila, a very naughty orangutan, took the entire canoe away, went down the canoe and went down the river with it. And
Oh,
my
wow.
good friend Robin Hanbury Tennyson, on a different expedition he was on, saw an orangutan go and get one of the expedition hammocks and tie it up in a tree and then went to sleep in it.
Amazing.
I'd have an orangutan round for supper because I think they'd actually be quite a good guest.
Unless they stole all your cakes, obviously.
Well, clearly,
That's a great answer. Love it. Um, so a couple more about your art as well, John. So
yeah.
when did you learn to paint, and how long does a painting take for you to paint?
Really, another really great question. So, I mean, I've been painting the whole of my life, and at school, I did because I'm 100 million years old, I did O levels and then A levels, and then went to art school and just kept painting. How long does a painting take? Well, a bit like the one I've done with you now. They tend to fit the space I've got. So the painting behind me, you can probably just glimpse over my shoulder. This is a meter square. That was done in a day. Um,
Wow.
which is unusually fast, but it had to be done in a day because of the time constraint. So I paint it in a way where it would be complete in the day. Other paintings, take much longer. There's a little glimpse of one just over there. That painting is probably about a week's worth of work, and it's probably a quarter of the size.
Oh, wow. So if you haven't finished your painting today, know that actually even great artists, they take a long time. So you can
I
always come
do.
back, you can revisit it.
They do, yeah. You can, and if it dries down, you can go back and add little touches of light. So I just take a bright yellow here, as if there's starlight coming down, and I can just add just some yellow, just on these bananas and on the top of this palm tree. And you can do this when your painting's dry. You can go back in with some brighter colours just to give it a lift. And that's what I would do to my paintings. But when I'm out on an expedition painting in the middle of a boma, which is the name of like a homestead where the Maasai would live, which would be mud, or in fact, cow dung and straw buildings where they live in. When I'm with them, and say I've got 2 hours, 3 hours before the Maasai are totally fed up with this strange person painting in their village, I do the painting to a size and with as much vigor and speed to get it done in that time. And it records a moment in time and place and what was happening.
Amazing. So yeah, different paintings for different days. Some are speedy, some less so. So lots of
Yeah.
different ways that you guys who are watching today can make your own art, which is really exciting. So I've got two more questions for you, John. We've got about 4 more minutes left, so we'll go through these
Yes.
before we finish off our paintings. And like you said, if you haven't finished your painting yet, you can carry on after the webinar, or you can come back another day and finish it off. Um, but we've had a question to ask, what was the most dangerous animal you saw in the Amazon?
That would probably be the snakes. I nearly trod on one, which wouldn't have been good for me and definitely wouldn't have been good for the snake. I was walking on the edge of the village with Nishiwaka Yawanawa, the Amazon Indian who you can meet if you do our Spirit of the Rainforest project. And I hope you all will at some stage do that. And suddenly, I was just walking on, suddenly he whacked his arm out, boom, straight into my chest like that. Almost winded me, like whack, like really hard. And I was like, what are you doing? It's like, have I done something that bad? And he said, you're not concentrating. There's a snake here. And it was a very large snake, really big snake. Not a constrictor. It was poisonous. It was a viper of some sort, black and white. And he was deeply unhappy with that situation. That he hadn't noticed it fast enough. I very nearly stumbled within its range, and he was unhappy that the snake, for him spiritually, had come to the village. At which point, they then take that as I'll do this quickly, not as a warning, as information, as news, as a heads up, and then they do something called a dieta, which is their word for basically diet, but it doesn't mean going on a diet, i.e., what it means is they have to do certain things spiritually, consume certain foods, certain herbs, certain medicines for a period of time, and they have to do certain things spiritually to appease their spirits, of which one is connected to the snake, i.e., to condense it down, he would then think that they are somewhat out of step with the rainforest for some reason, and they need to get back
Oh,
in
wow.
balance with the rainforest, which I think is really
That's amazing. Yeah. And then trying to balance things out because as we know, ecosystems, environments, they work in
yeah,
balance. So that's absolutely amazing. Oh, I love it. Thank you for sharing, John.
yeah,
That's amazing. So yeah, obviously pay attention where you're walking as well
yes.
in the future. Um, okay, so lovely. I think I might know the answer to this question, John, but it's from Martha at St Hilary, and she wants to know how many tapirs you have painted.
Just these ones. I've never done them before. This is my first time.
They look amazing. But again,
Well,
I'm
in fact,
sure lots of you.
that's not quite true. I did do something similar for the webinar thumbnail for you, but that's it. That one and this one. So I'm only on
Oh,
the iPad, so I've actually never painted them on canvas yet.
so some of you today who are watching, it's probably your first time painting a tapir as well. So there we go.
Yeah.
Brilliant. You're all in it together. I absolutely love it. Brilliant. Fantastic. So we are coming towards the end. So I'll just let John explain what he's doing to finish off uh,
Yeah.
as we
So
near the end.
yeah, I'm just putting in some rainforest plants. If you think of a shape of a leaf or a plant, it will be there. Lots of them are sword shaped. They let the water run off because they don't want to sort of drown. So you get lots of sword shaped leaves, lots of waxy leaves, and you get lots of low sort of like ground cover. Lots of plants ready to bolt for the canopy when a tree comes down, and they sort of stay there for years on end. And one of them will they could be trees, whatever. I'm just looking for areas to put light and sort of and just pick up some vibrancy in the painting, little touches of green. And you can use any sort of colors. And I've also put a few little touches of reflections that might be coming down in the tributary here, which could be the Rio Gregorio, where the Ioannara are, or it could be the Rio Negro. I've also been at that completely different part of the Amazon. It could be anywhere, any of the tributaries. But yeah, and when we've got this done, I'll probably do just a few more minutes work on it afterwards, but not much. And when you've got yours done, I'd really love it if you shared them, if your schools are able to share them on social media and at Born Free In and at Last Chance to Paint In. Have a look at our handles on Facebook and X or Instagram, wherever you guys hang out. That's really good for us as a project to see immediately we're having a positive impact. And any of those we will then share, repost or share on Last Chance to Paint as well, which would be really lovely if you could do that. And yeah, and download those resources and get fully immersed and sign up to Last Chance to Paint properly if you're not already. And if you are running one of our expeditions, obviously I won't be there live, but it will be as if I'm there live. And if you've got questions, there's a form, fill it in on our website, and I will still answer those questions on email. So make sure you add Last Chance to Paint as a trusted contact, so it doesn't go straight to your junk folder.
That's amazing. John, I absolutely love your painting. I love the baby tapir. I love the kind of perspective of the river that you've got there as well. It is absolutely brilliant. So I'm sure those of you who are joining us today have done equally fantastic paintings. And as John said, we would absolutely love to see what you've been up to. So yeah, submit them to the Last Chance to Paint website or put them on social media. We'd love to see them. Please tag Born Free and Last Chance to Paint so we can have a look
Yeah.
because it's always really, really exciting to be able to see your fantastic artwork.
And we do have just to jump in, we do have a world gallery of paintings from children, so you can submit them properly if you wish to. Just go to have a look on the top menu, and yeah, and you can submit them in. And it's a gallery of art that basically bears witness to what we risk losing. So yeah, anyway, sorry to jump in there, Charlie.
No, not at all. And obviously, as John said throughout the webinar, remember to tread gently, remember to look after our planet, because we want to make sure that this isn't the last chance to paint a tapir. We want them to be around for many, many years to come. But thank you so much to everyone for joining us today.